My mother was born Alice Newton, and she married my father, Ben Childs, in the early 40s and was Alice Newton Childs in Holyoke for about 50 years. And in the early 90s, she married Bill Smith and became Alice Newton Smith. And that is the name by which she gave her gift to the hospital. My mother was able to make this gift. Well, she lived a very long time. She husbanded her resources well. Her father was in paper manufacturing in Holyoke at the beginning of the 20th century, and she inherited some money from him. She set up a charitable remainder trust, and on her death, the trust was dispersed to organizations that she had named, and many of them were in Holyoke. My mother lived in Holyoke most of her life. It was her community. It was her parents' community. It was my father's community. In the mid-1930s, when my mother was a young woman and she lived in Holyoke, she became involved in a number of charitable organizations, and one of the first was the Hospital Aid Association. She was active in that. She helped found the area mental health center. My mother had a fair amount of energy. She was very well organized. She had good ideas. She was capable, and she knew a lot of people in Holyoke, and so she devoted her energies to not just the hospital, but to a number of other organizations. The hospital was one of the first. My father was on the board of the hospital, and when he died in the early 80s, she took his seat on the board of the hospital and later served a term in her own right. All of her daughters were born here at Holyoke Hospital. And then there was a period in I think the 60s or the 70s, she did have several procedures in the hospital. And the thing that's interesting to me is she knew all her doctors. I mean, she knew Ed Ferguson and she knew Victor Panich. She knew all these doctors socially, and then she would come here and they would take care of her. And at the very end of her life, she was in the ER twice. But I think more than a user of the services, she was a supporter of the services.